Time goes by so quickly in the world of Marvel Snap that it's Tuesday again, so it's time for another scouting report for the brand new card Valentina. And in this episode, I'm wearing a hat because I felt like it. Valentina is a 2/3 with an on-reveal ability to add a random 6 cost card to your hand. You give it -2 cost and -3 power. This is going to be a super interesting card in, you guessed it, Loki decks. Why? We're typically running the Quinjet anyway, so you're going to take a 6 cost card. If you got Quinjet down on turn 1, it's going to be now a 3 cost card. Now we can go ahead and argue about some of the best or worst cards for Valentina to pull with her effect, but ultimately there's probably more on the good side than the bad side. A 3 or a 4 cost Dr. Doom, impeccable. Even Agatha going down on turn 4 at, let's do math, 11 power, not mad about it, right? So it's going to be a really interesting card. Let's look at some of the deck lists, though, where Valentina is going to find a home in. We're going to start off with the obvious, the Loki options, and there are a few different builds of that are interesting and unique. And then we have a few others at the end that I think you'll like a lot that are very creative ways that we can use this card. Let's get into it. We're starting you off with a real shocker here, taking the best performing Loki deck from Untapped and slotting in Valentina. We're so creative. But this, you guys, it's a good list, and it's a card that fits perfectly with the other 11 cards in this deck. Now, I will say, peep the profile picture. Power on, baby. If you don't know, I'm part of a new gaming group called Power On Gaming. You should check us out on all of the socials. We are officially launching tomorrow. I'm excited for it. But anyways, back to the list here. By now, I think most of you know what this list is intending to do. We have the bonus of the nice Kitty Pryde, Angela, Elsa Bloodstone package in here. Now, the way this one card switches up your mindset when playing this version of the Loki deck is that if you do pull a good 6 cost card that you're like, this is high value, I want to play this card, I do not want to Loki it away, you maybe get the added bonus of Lokiing on 5 and hanging on to your Kitty Pryde. A lot of times currently, if you're going to Loki on 4, you have to just accept that you're throwing away the Kitty Pryde. But with Angela down, a lot of times you want to keep the Kitty Pryde for those 2 extra procs on turn 5 and 6. So here we can play Valentina early. We get our 6 drop card on turn 4. We play that 6 drop card, and then on turn 5 we Kitty Pryde one more time, we Loki away the rest, or maybe we Snow Guard and we Loki. We have options here. I like it in this build. It seems consistent, it seems good. I'm very excited to test this one out and see if it is a good swap. But also, Mirage can fill that slot. If you don't have Valentina, you can fill a lot of different cards in that slot there. You could put Red Guardian in there, you could put Hope Summers. You have options if you choose not to get Valentina, but if you do pull her, this is a good week for Spotlight Keshes with Blob and Null. Just chuck it in here. Have a good time. Climb some ladder. Moving right along to the next very obvious way to restructure the Loki deck. We have this one from Lamby, playing this on day 1 of the new card releasing. So now we just take out the Mockingbird because we're under the assumption that we might not have Mockingbird value. We might not get enough cards that didn't start in our deck down to discount the Mockingbird. We end up just Lokiing it away most of the time anyways, so we're just going to remove it from the list altogether in favor of adding in the Collector, because now we have Kitty Pryde can boost up Collector, Snow Guard, Mirage, Valentina, Agent, Coulson. All of those cards can give Collector a boost. He could get to a sizable, even if he's a 2/6, a 2/7, 2/8, that's huge value. And then the rest of the deck just does what Loki decks do. You either manage to secure a lane where Angela or Collector are getting tall enough, Elsa Bloodstone contributing to that with a really big Kitty Pryde. You have those games where you choose not to Loki at all. Between those scaling cards and a Shang-Chi to secure another lane, we're good to go. We don't need to Loki away our hand, or we just get a bunch of random cards generated, we Loki it away, we play their deck cheaper. You know how the deal goes. So there's the other list. Let's move on to some other creative options. Now here's where we start to get a little spicy, okay? This is a Loki lockdown option. So what we're doing here, my understanding, is we're giving ourselves a lot of really good tools to not need to Loki. The Loki is the backup option. The Loki is not the win condition with a list like this. The win condition is a good Professor X lane and a cannonball elsewhere. And we've seen those two cards in conjunction just... they're so good. It's frustrating to play against for sure, but there's no doubt in my mind that it's a strong Marvel Snap combo. Now I have to wonder in a list like this how crucial White Widow is as a piece, because that might not be a card that's as accessible to many of you out there. I'm sure that we can swap the White Widow maybe for some other tech piece. Maybe Red Guardian can fill that role. Maybe we throw Storm in there for some additional lockdown options. Maybe we even drop a Lizard in there for just a good cheap card that has good value. If we can lock down that lane before our opponents are able to fill it up and reduce the power of our Lizard. There are some options I think that can be a flex spot. I think White Widow is very powerful in a list like this. So if you do have it, definitely run it. But if you don't fret. Mix it up, make the deck your own. I do personally like to see Miss Marvel coming into action again. I think it's a card that when it first came out was so meta defining, and now it's fallen off a bit. But I do still think that 4 cost for 14 power is real good value. Now you obviously have to manage where you put what cost cards on your side lanes and whatnot. You know, you can't put the Cable and the White Widow both in one lane. You're not going to get the buff, but I believe in you. You can handle managing that and making sure that you get the power. And in a worst case scenario, even if she is 4 cost for 9 power, because you can only buff up one lane or the other, that's still really good value. And it does help that the Professor X, you have a secondary way to make sure that if you played the Professor X and you still kept the Miss Marvel in hand, and you didn't actually end up securing that Professor X lane, you have another way to get some extra power in there that isn't just Jeff. There's not much more to say on the list. It's pretty straightforward of what we're trying to do here and what the win conditions are. And then we have the Loki as the backup in case we ever need to just go, you know what, let's just play a crap ton of cheap cards. So there you have it. Grab this one if you have access to the pieces in it. Have a good time. I don't consider myself to be a top tier Marvel Snap chef by any means, but I can tell you that the list that Bradcifer cooked up right here, never in my wildest dreams would I have put these 12 cards together, but it makes so much sense. You look at the list and you can kind of guess that what the play order is supposed to be, what we're going for here. Now, we're just throwing in all of them. We've got Quinjet, Agent 13, Maria Hill. We're generating a bunch of stuff. We're boosting up a collector. We're playing some cheap cards, and then we add in the spice. Then we get in the Helicarrier, the Lady Sif, and the Ghost Rider. That trio right there, ooh, that's good. That's good Marvel Snap brewing right there. Now, some of you might be like, Sal, that's so obvious. Of course, that would be a really good 3-card combo to put in a deck like this. Okay, well, I thought it was cool. One of my favorite things, though, about a deck like this is that your opponent, they can never know what's going to come next. They have no way to anticipate what cards that you are going to be dropping on them. And now, a deck like this might perform actually particularly well in Conquest, where part of the bonus that you have, the advantage you have, is after a few rounds of that Conquest game, you know what's in your opponent's deck. Except for here, you have no clue. It gives your opponent that anxiety of never being secure and feeling safe, of knowing what could come next and planning accordingly. I love that. So if you are the type of gamer out there where you love a little bit of chaos, you love a little bit of mystery, you love keeping your opponents on edge, snag this list. I'm going to have all of them down in the description below. Copy, paste, put it in there, go play some games, have fun. Now we're going to round out this video with a very accessible list from It's Guest Gaming. We're looking at a Toxic Shuri list. And this one, I say more accessible because most of the pieces in this list, aside from the Valentina and the US Agent, are very free-to-play friendly. Most of you should have access to those cards. Now, the two newer ones that we just mentioned, yeah, you might have had to roll some keys for them, but this is a Valentina video, so that one's kind of mandatory for the list. That's the whole point of this series. The US agent, we can always find some swaps for if need be. But overall, the point of a list like this is we're going really tall in 2 lanes, and we can reduce our enemy power by just a little bit with the hazmat, and if you do have the US agent. But I'm sure most of you have seen Shuri lists before, where you play Shuri, you play Vision or Red Skull, then you play Taskmaster on the final turn, and you just have big giant numbers in 2 places, and that's what we're still doing here, but we have some extra flexibility, and we also have the Valentina to give us another option if we need a really big card to play. If we don't get Shuri on turn 4, we still can play whatever we got from Valentina, because again, it will be 4 cost, so we can just have a little bit more flexibility of how we go out playing these lines when we don't get the ideal Shuri, Red Skull, Taskmaster. Now, one thing to note, this does cut the Sauron, so you don't have a way to remove the ongoing effects from your own cards, because in a list like this, you don't want to. You want to make sure that your Luke Cage still has his ability, and that your US agent, ideally, if you have it in here, still has their ability. Now, it does mean that Typhoid Mary and Red Skull can still have those not so great abilities. You have the Zero still if you need to cancel them out. You have Enchantress if you're playing them in a certain order where you can Enchantress them after the fact. There are still some options to be flexible and work around it. Overall, though, I think this is a really solid and creative home for Valentina that isn't just Loki, and it's a play style that is more accessible to people that don't want to have to juggle all of the insanity of Loki and all of the million different variations and multiverses that he creates. This one here, we're good. Guest Gaming is a fantastic streamer and content creator and caster and all of the above. His links are down below, so if you do want to watch any footage of this exact list getting played, you can always check out his VODs over on Twitch. Great place to go see some gameplay. And that concludes this week's video. Hey, guess what? My links are down below too. So if you do want to follow me along on any of the other platforms, if you want to watch me live streaming on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over on Twitch, if you want to follow me on Twitter for any of my hot takes on Marvel Snap, if you want to just like and subscribe this video and write a comment of what you thought or what you'd like to see in next week's video, any of the above would be supremely helpful. But either way, if you've made it this far in the video, I love you. I appreciate you. We will see you next week for the next episode of the Scouting Report. Take care, everybody.